Welcome to a special presentation of the Remedial Film Class podcast. Tonight we look at an upcoming film from Vinegar Syndrome Pictures, all thanks to Ted Geoghegan, who's also known as Ted Alive or Brain Ted on Twitter. He's a director, but he's also working PR for Vinegar Syndrome, trying to get the word out on this exciting new movie. And the first movie from Vinegar Syndrome Pictures. Now, the Vinegar Syndrome Company has been around for years and years. They're a restoration company. They primarily focus on getting old 35mm and 16mm movies scanned into a digital format before they degrade. The name Vinegar Syndrome comes from the degradation process of 35mm film. And why is that important? Well, if they aren't able to, and if other companies aren't able to get these old films and get them into a digital format, we are going to lose them to time. So it's a race against the elements and a race against time to preserve as much film history as possible. Now, Vinegar Syndrome does tend to aim for the genres, mostly, exploitation, horror, adult, a lot of fun stuff in the Vinegar Syndrome archive and available at their store, The Archive in Connecticut. But this is a new venture. This is the first picture from their own in-house production company. So it's a Vinegar Syndrome Pictures release, the first one. And we were given early access so that we could give our little take, or 3 takes, as it usually is on this show, about the upcoming film. And we're going to release this just in time for you to get hyped and get your orders in November 1st when the first release comes out. Now, it's going to be a 4K release along with a Blu-ray, all the bells and whistles of a special edition release. Fantastic packaging. Vinegar Syndrome will put any movie into a fantastic package, even Killing Birds. And so, as usual, we didn't give George any kind of information up front, so he was a bit flabbergasted at first, but you can hear him come around as we go. I'm just going to tell you, this is Dan. 100% recommend this movie. It's bonkers, but the right kind of bonkers, like the watchable kind of bonkers. Some of it doesn't make any damn sense, but it's like the best bonkers movie I've seen this year, and I've seen a lot of them. Just as a little preview, I want you to understand that what Vinegar Syndrome has done is they've taken footage created in the 80s, so a literal 80s movie that no longer had any sound design and was in no way compiled. And they went in and actually formed a movie out of that footage and re-recorded the entire sound. So, everything from your vocal performances to your Foley work, your sound design, the whole package is brand new from scratch. And so you get this unique opportunity where for the first time in years, everyone's discovering a brand new 80s movie at the same time because it did not exist until this year. And the cast is full of famous people from the B-movie world. Guys, I'm telling you, this movie rocks. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get the show started here, and we'll bring the guys in, and we'll see what George thought with no background, and then we'll give him background on how this movie came to be. Stick around for that. It's insane, as all these good movies are. But we will not spoil the movie, no worries. If you have not seen the movie, chances are you haven't because it didn't exist until right now. All right, on with the show. Welcome to a special edition of the Remedial Film Class podcast. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Travis.
And I'm George.
And today we join you with a preview of an upcoming film, the first from Vinegar Syndrome Pictures, New York Ninja, the 1984 half-finished masterpiece that is now a 2021 brand new release. Guys, this movie is awesome. So our normal format for the Remedial Film Class is to make George watch a classic film that he should have seen over the last 30 years. What the heck's wrong with you, dude? And then, if he doesn't love it right away, which he usually doesn't, we give him the context and background so that he realizes what a fool he was for not loving it right away. See RoboCop. Dude, RoboCop, come on.
I came around. Took me almost a year, but I came around.
Well, we had to hire the actor that played RoboCop to yell at you.
And he was
He's like, your move, creep.
He was the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say.
Well, actually, hopefully we brought enough straw to break your back tonight.
Oh,
George,
I don't
initial
know.
impression of New York Ninja.
This movie need RoboCop in there. a few
Okay,
times.
so I actually just got back from the hospital. I was in for alcohol poisoning because I was playing a drinking game while watching the film, which is drink every time you think to yourself, what the fuck am I watching? And so I just got back like 5 minutes ago.
Well, and here's the deal about the New York Ninja. We're just going to jump right out front. We're not going to spoil the movie because this is a preview rather than a review, although all three of us have seen the movie to completion, I assume, and I hope. So the thing about the New York Ninja, I don't know that you're aware of this, George, because you've never seen a Kung Fu movie, have you?
I've seen a Kung Fu movie. Not like a huge Kung Fu fan. I mean, Kung Fu Panda 2 is pretty good.
It's not
Okay, so aside from the pandas who kung their fu, these movies, Kung Fu movies, especially of the 70s, 80s, even back to the 60s, are a lot like the Italian giallos in that they're made for, $10 in a sandwich. And they're meant to appeal to, people willing to just walk in and not question what they're seeing on the screen. So the critical mind is not really...
kind of like horror fans today.
Yeah. You don't need the critical mind to enjoy what they're going to bring to you, because for the most part, they're going to bring you karate kicks, stabbings, and some boobies, right? Like, we're not talking about high art here. We're talking about art for the masses.
Okay.
So if you came into New York Ninja expecting The Grapes of Wrath, directed by Steven Spielberg, written by Aaron Sorkin, you're in the wrong theater, bro. We're here to kick people's faces in, wear silly masks, and stab a couple of dudes.
Yeah, movies like this played in not porno theaters, but like the seedy theaters on like the 3rd street off the alley, not like on the main strip.
It's 42nd Street, man.
Yeah, but like...
It's like porno theater, this movie, an Argento movie, porno theater, strip club.
Yeah, it was like 1980s New York.
Which is exactly where they shot the movie.
Yeah.
Guerrilla style. Now, none of that's even going to help convince George of the merits of this movie, but what I think the thing that this movie brings to the table that all the other Kung Fu movies of the era did not, this movie was shot completely in 1984, but was not finished until 2021. Guys, they redid the entire audio track from scratch, including all the sound design. They rewrote the script to fit the film that they had, and they created essentially a brand new story out of existing video materials, and still managed to make an awesome, coherent, fun little action movie.
It actually is even more interesting than that. Like, picture a 9 or 10 cans of like raw footage traveling here and there, being passed off to this estate and this estate, and then being bankruptcied, auctioned off to basically a place that wants to. They like to restore movies. They like to put out movies that were never released. They like to, take B movies and re-release them because no one owns the rights anymore. Like, and they have these cans that they were going to throw away, and they're looking at it like, okay, they all have the same name on them. Let's take these out and see what's in there. And they basically look at it all. It's not in order. Usually you have a clapboard with like a scene number and like all this information on the clapperboard, but there's no script for them to figure out where the hell this scene is in the script.
Right.
They find it. They're watching it. They picture Jaws, right? A movie like Jaws. Now this is nowhere near the caliber of Jaws.
No, certainly not.
I mean, there's an argument to be made.
Okay. Or The Shining. Okay. Let's say Kubrick died while filming The Shining and his family inherited those cans. No one was allowed to touch them. And then 30 years later, in an estate sale, somebody goes in, buys these cans from Stanley Kubrick's estate. They find out it's The Shining. They don't know what The Shining is. They put it in. There's no soundtrack whatsoever. You can't hear a word anybody's saying.
Okay.
You don't have any script, so you don't know the order of these scenes. They're all raw.
Okay.
And you're looking at it, you're like, okay, short of lip reading, I have no idea what the hell they're saying.
Right.
So
And even if you do all the lip reading, it still doesn't make any damn sense
Right.
because a lot of this footage would have been eventually cut out or trimmed
right,
to
it's not,
finalize the movie, but they never did it.
right, and they my issue with it when I was watching it was obviously the voice dub, because that's
Right.
my thing, and I can't stand the voice dub.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Dan in Post. If this is your first time here at the Remedial Film Class, or if you're a new listener, I would recommend that you go back and listen to our episode when we showed George Dario Argento's The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. You'll get the full scoop on how Travis can't stand when the mouths don't do exactly what he expects them to do, and he sticks to his guns. So, I don't know if that's something to be applauded, but I mean, I'll golf clap it. Anyway, back to the show.
When you put the voice dub with, like you said, it was guerrilla style. It was like, get the shot and let's get out of here. You know, acting was not important. Emotion was not important. None of that was important. The only thing was get the information on film and then we'll do it in post.
Okay.
But then they didn't have, like the guys that found the film, they didn't have any information.
Yeah, the in-post never happened.
In-post never happened.
So that's what we did.
So they get
Just
voiceover people, because I'm watching the ending and I'm like, Cynthia Rothrock, what the hell is she doing a voiceover for? She's a martial artist. Why is she in this movie? Like, it was bothering me when I saw her name. And then the whole movie, I'm looking for Linnea Quigley. I'm like, I know she's in this. She's not in it. I can't find her. So I'm rewinding and I'm like, was she one of the prostitutes? Was she one of the cops or whatever? No Linnea Quigley at all. And then I'm like, Don the Dragon is in this. I didn't see him. He's an awesome fighter. Why is he not friggin' in this movie? So none of that made sense to me until I found out the history of this thing.
It's just their voices.
Yeah, they got them, like 2 years ago to do a year and a half ago.
Right.
Today, not Cynthia Rothrock in the 80s, who would have kicked everybody's ass in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But now. So it made, and the Michael Berryman too. I was like, okay, I didn't see him either. So none of that made sense. Once I found out what the movie was, I was like, okay, I can completely respect these guys for what they tried to do and what they did. And they succeeded in what they were trying to do to an extent. It's still a 1985 Kung Fu movie, 84. Okay. And that's what I grew up on. Like when I was a kid, Saturdays were Saturday morning cartoons, Kung Fu theater, Creature double feature, and WWF wrestling. That was it. So, but I tended to not watch the Kung Fu as much. I was a Bruce Lee guy, and they were not Bruce Lee. Plus, the dubbing bothered me even back then.
Right.
And you get nothing but dubbing in Kung Fu movies.
Yes.
But you also get a lot of really good karate kicks. I mean, I guess they're Kung Fu, Taekwondo kicks. I'm very confused because they say it's like a Kung Fu movie, but the martial arts being practiced looks more like Taekwondo, but I am no expert. Guys, Kurtis Spieler, who directed this movie.
Guys.
Brad Henderson.
New drinking game. I just came up with it.
Every time I say guys.
Every time Dan says guys.
That's his convincing voice. He's trying to convince.
Okay.
Guys.
So for the sake of the listeners who, want to hear what happens. Guys, listen. Kurtis Spieler, the director of the redirection of this movie, made, I would say, an above average, at least 80s Kung Fu movie out of wishes, prayers, and a little bit of raw footage. Like, this guy created a miracle. And I hope that people realize when they see it, I mean, the guy is violating the crap in, crap out rule, and with enthusiasm. This is cinematic alchemy. Kurtis Spieler made a plot that's worth following and a movie worth watching out of a scrap heap. And Brad Henderson, the producer, my gosh, he's a great Twitter follow if you're on Twitter. Brad's great. But he put together such a strong cast of like the Vinegar Syndrome all-stars, right? Guys from exploitation movies and action movies that they've been publishing over the years. People that like Linnea Quigley, who everybody instantly recognizes her if you're into these movies. Michael Berryman, oh my gosh. I mean, a champion actor coming through with an insane performance that has to be heard to be understood. My gosh. And again, we cannot thank Ted Geoghegan, Brain Ted, on Twitter, the work in PR for Vinegar Syndrome. We can't thank him enough for bringing us in and giving us the opportunity to see this movie early and get it in front of all your eyes ahead of time, because my gosh, guys, my gosh.
Yeah, I think I need to be clear on the difference between liking the movie, like the actual movie that John Liu, was it Liu? John Liu?
John,
Who's
it's spelled Liu, but the voiceover guy says it Liu.
Okay.
John Liu.
The film that he filmed,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like. But the work that Vinegar Syndrome did, I do like.
Right.
Like I think a lot of the things I had a problem with the voiceovers, I think they did a lot of it on purpose to match the film.
Right.
Because it was very hokey and almost like on purpose hokey.
Right.
Like the direction was, he's playing it Nicolas Cage style on the screen. That's how you have to deliver it. So
I think back then it was still Wings Hauser style.
Right. But it's like a lot of the gang stuff was just so bad. So
oh my gosh. Or so wonderful. It just, your cynicism over what is essentially an hour-and-a-half version of the Beat It video, but with more masks.
It's basically what it is, with more masks.
It's wonderful.
Right.
The Beat It aesthetic is all over this movie, just with a little extra human trafficking.
I think you're watching it with a little different, because you're a Giallo person. You're watching it with a little bit more care and caress. I'm
classic Giallo, Michael Jackson's Beat It.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but you mentioned
Classic
Giallo earlier with the Italian. The basically it's the same formula in the Italian movies as these movies.
I think what he's talking about is the sound and the dub and all that, how they film, and then they
right.
take
we
their
have a
film
cool story, but we don't really care what the acting is. It's going to be dubbed anyway.
They take their
Right.
they take their film that has no sound on it to the sound studio, and then they add sound to their film. That's how the Italians did it in the 70s.
They just didn't wait 30 years to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
To me, that was the movie that was made, and then these guys went ahead and wrote a script, and they made a new movie from the old footage, and that's actually sounds like fun to me. Like I remember when Carpenter talks about when he shipped Halloween around to all the places without a score, everybody was like, "What is this crap?" And then he put a score in, and it made it the top 10 greatest horror movies of all time. So with this, that's basically what these guys tried to do. They tried to add a dialogue type score to a movie they have no idea what it's about, and the context of these characters, like the guy melting, like seriously, completely overacted.
That actually makes more sense now. That like you get this film, the picture, and you have to come up with a storyline that matches it.
Yeah. Like every once in a while, a word matched what they were saying. It was almost like watching lip sync.
They mostly, bad lip reading.
Bad lip reading. Like some of the words did match.
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
And actually, that was like one of my wife. She watched a few seconds of it before she left the room.
Yeah.
And she
Lucky her.
And she was like, why is it dubbed? They're speaking the same language.
Right.
Like usually,
And that was what I was thinking when I was watching. I was like, these are all.
Yeah,
it's filmed in America.
Yeah,
it's American actors.
They're speaking English and they're overdubbing in English. What is going on here? Which is normal for, like you said before, Giallo did that in Italian all the time,
right?
And even in English over there in Italy. But and I tried to explain that to her. I was like, what, blah blah blah. This is from a long time ago, but you don't really see it usually in American movies, like. Filmed in New York.
Schwarzenegger playing, Hercules coming to America. Then they dub his voice with somebody else's, which is pretty funny.
I haven't seen that, so I'll take your word for it.
It doesn't fit in our.
No. Well,
or Lucio Fulci's Zombie, also filmed guerrilla style in New York. We watched it at the beginning of our spring outbreak earlier this year.
So, anyways, yeah, she said she didn't understand that either, and. I didn't either. I didn't watch the what is the documentary, the behind the scenes. So I'm just going into this watching this movie.
And the reason why I said that was when I watched the documentary, one of the names that Dan mentioned, Brad Henderson?
Yep.
He mentions in the documentary, I want someone today to watch this movie as it is and not know any of this. Just watch it as if it was a 1984 found footage movie kind of thing. Like, we just found this, we're releasing it. It was never released. It's kind of like when they find like a missing song from Bob Dylan or whatever. It's like, we're just going to release it. And that's what he wanted.
All right,
People to see it that way.
he really messed me up.
He messed me up too, because I watched the documentary second.
Right.
So all the anger that I had, I was like, oh, okay. Now it makes sense. That's why the lips weren't matching. That's why.
You were angry.
I was angry. Like, I wanted to punch a baby. I said it. Like, all babies, and I like babies, but I wanted to punch one. So I stayed out of the
Keep your
the
babies
maternity
away
ward.
from Travis. Yeah.
At work. Yeah. So I was just like, and I was just angry because it was so simple.
Now, in the documentary, they talk about a couple other movies that John Liu has done. Ninja in the Claws of the CIA stood out to me as one I'll be looking up as soon as I can find the DVD copy of it, because I doubt that's made it to Blu-ray yet. But guys, alternate title for Ninja in the Claws of the CIA. Guys.
Drink.
Kung Fu Emmanuel. Now, if you know me as a fan of trashy Italian cinema, you've already sold me on this movie. Kung Fu Emmanuel. Okay, I'm in. Rock and roll.
Well, I thought you were in on this movie because it's basically the story of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's totally a Batman movie. That's another thing we need to cover.
Yeah. I'm watching, I'm like, where he's basically in the alleyway where, putting the flowers down.
Okay.
It even kind of looks like Batman
Spider-Man.
89 when he's doing the flower bit.
Do you remember how in Wayne's World they went to see the Shitty Beatles?
Mm-hmm.
This is like
the Shitty Beatles.
the shitty Batman.
It's so shitty. And it's a little bit of Spider-Man too. Like, it has
it's a little bit of Spider-Man. It's a little bit of Punisher.
A little bit of Punisher.
It's a little bit of what was I thinking? There's a couple movies.
What's the Seagal movie where his family gets wiped out and is it Marked for Death or Above the Law?
I don't know.
Hard to Kill.
Hard to Kill. One of those.
Yeah.
They all have the same title. I can't keep them straight.
Yeah, but I remember that he's like in his bedroom and his family gets wiped out right in front of him. So it's like, yeah, it's that kind of movie where it's a revenge, it's a death wish type movie.
It's got some Western elements too here and there where you're like, oh, okay, that's a little bit, samurai movie by way of Western, by way of 80s beat it aesthetic. Batman. It's kind of Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, the movie.
Yeah, it's like Double Dragon.
Yeah. I mean, these are all the
Warriors.
This movie is awesome. And it comes right in it's also, it deals heavily with human trafficking and prostitution. And it comes in the middle of the 80s. And so like in 82, you get Vice Squad. In 83, you get Angel. In 84, you get Savage Streets and New York Ninja. And then in 85, you get Streetwalking. And all these movies all connect in like aesthetic ways. They're all in New York. Oh, guys, I think this movie's awesome. Now, George, you've seen the movie The Wall, correct?
The Wall?
The Wall. Pink Floyd's
Pink
The
Floyd?
Wall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever think when he was transforming into the fascist in the backseat of that car as he melted his outer layers to comfortably numb, did you ever think, man, if only this was a sex scene?
No.
George finally got the boobs he wanted from Scream.
I never really thought I never thought of combining sex with comfortably numb until this movie, and now I'm kind of intrigued, guys. New York Ninja, it'll take you places.
Yeah, that was the scene that my wife walked in on.
Really?
Oh, nice.
Naturally.
No, I think she did. Like that was like later on. She like came in and was like, "Oh."
Do they have radar
And she left.
wives? Is that how they do that?
Yeah, what?
I know John Liu is still
Radar,
alive.
yeah.
I wish they would ask him what the F with the melting guy. Like, I want to know the real premise of this movie. Like,
Well, and who knows? There might be reels missing. There might be a great origin story somewhere on another reel that just got lost in the shuffle, and it's up to these, these heroes over at Vinegar Syndrome who were just like, you know what? We're gonna make it make sense as best we can.
This could be a Marvel movie. This could be like an origin story.
I found it
of a
more
supervillain.
entertaining than a lot of Marvel movies. I don't know, guys. I've never seen a rat tail like that rat tail in any Marvel movie.
That dude, man. That dude.
So bad.
It's so funny, too, because if you've seen the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 91 or so, whenever they made that
91.
The aesthetics of New York, and really just like even the lighting design and like this feels like it was made a year before Ninja Turtles. And then if you make 3 ninjas a couple years later, like there are so many parallels and through lines. Those 3 movies kind of, they all exist in the same timeline for me. And I'm happy to be here in that timeline.
It's funny, in the documentary, they were talking about how famous and important, like, at that time frame, ninjas were. Like, it was like the big thing at the time. And they mentioned all these things that were the reason for it. And they never mentioned, because it was like 85, 84, they never mentioned G.I. Joe. Like, the 2 coolest characters in the G.I. Joe cartoon were ninjas.
Right.
Actually, the 3 coolest characters, if you think about it, like Quick Kick, Snake Eyes, and Storm Shadow were all like kick-ass ninjas. So everybody growing up, that was the thing. Like, ninjas were the thing. And then obviously when you get into the 90s with the movies that Dan just said, it was like mainstream. Like, everything had a ninja. It was like 3 guys, a girl, and a ninja. Like,
yeah,
they were just everywhere. Oh, pizza store run by ninjas. Like, it was everywhere.
I grew up on 3 Ninjas.
Such a good movie.
That's a movie I have seen.
Nice.
It's
from
so
when
good.
I was a kid.
That was the only VHS on your counter.
It was
or on your-
wholesome enough for my
for
my
your
house.
Light up the eyes, boys. Light up the eyes.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey,
and
so-
Mighty Ducks.
Yeah, Mighty Ducks too. Yeah.
So we're talking about sound design earlier, and all the Foley work too. Don't forget, George, that it's completely audio-less, right? So everything you heard in this movie, from sound
I could
effects
tell. Yeah.
to clanging
yeah.
backgrounds, everything they had to recreate from scratch, and I think they did a hell of a job. If anything, it just sounds as hokey as standard in the 80s sound design, but they
Yeah.
did it 30 years later with no connection to the source material.
It is definitely authentic.
But the soundtrack of this movie, guys, you cannot argue with me on this. The soundtrack by Voyager 3
It's good.
is really good. Right from the first bit, I was like, oh, this is fresh. Like, this isn't old canned music. Like, they made a whole new score for this movie, and oh man.
Yeah. But then the acting, though.
Well, it's a kung fu movie made for without permits in the
Yeah.
80s, without audio. Like, you
Didn't
really,
know all that.
I mean, yeah, you got to give it, you got to have a little bit of understanding about what we're doing here. Like, it's like going to a punk rock concert and being like, yeah, but singer was a little pitchy. It's like, yeah, because he's doing punk rock. Like, this isn't, we're not here for the Pavarottis, right? Like, Simon Cowell, sit down.
I didn't know any of that when I was
And
watching.
it probably
I was
had
just
it
like-
probably had a budget. This probably didn't have a
the makeup guy said he
budget
had
at all.
$100 to do all the makeup in the entire movie. But I learned that in the documentary.
Right.
To me, they should lead this movie off with the documentary.
Yeah.
Well, and
Because
that's actually an interesting, I mean, you could make that sales pitch right here is that, buy this release from Vinegar Syndrome for the documentary, and then once you're intrigued, check out this amazing product that we got on the
Right.
main feature.
Here's the end result of the the soundless film we found.
Well, and here's the thing. Maybe my favorite thing about New York Ninja. We often say on this show that, they just don't make them like they did in the 80s, And that's a problem, right? Especially, if you have a genre you're attached to. I'm big on slashers. Once you've seen all the major 80s slashers, the good ones, you're left with slashers you haven't seen because they suck and nobody's ever shown them to you because they're terrible. Or, stuff from the 90s, stuff from the 2000s, which, as we've discussed a lot recently, the 90s and 2000 slashers do a lot of like Mandela effect, like how we remember the 80s movies, but not actually how they were, this false impression nonsense that they do. In this opportunity, guys, you have a new 80s movie, the way they used to make them. And that's not going to happen often, right? Like,
Right.
there are going to be projects that companies like Vinegar Syndrome will be able to track down and clean up. And, heck, this might become a thing. They may do 2 or 3 more of these, but you're not talking about dozens of movies that we're going to unearth and have remade. So this is a really unique opportunity to have one made like they used to make them, only have it be new.
It's interesting.
It is definitely interesting. And if they need someone to do voiceover work, just give me a call. I would love the opportunity to do what they did.
Yeah,
I mean,
if
that's
you
just
want-
really cool.
Yeah, if you want to have Bart Simpson in your film.
Yeah, right? Yeah, you have Homer Simpson. I'm going to beat everybody up.
No, Homer. I said
Yeah,
Bart.
not Bart. You said Bart.
I said Bart. I meant Homer.
There's a quote in the documentary. Unrelenting crotch hell. If I haven't just sold you a Blu-ray, what is wrong with you? Guys, go find out what's going on with unrelenting crotch hell. Guys,
Yeah,
drink.
drink.
Oh man.
I'm super excited. I was excited for this movie, and then after it's one of those rare times I've seen the movie now, right? I got the opportunity, thanks to everybody over at Vinegar Syndrome, to see the screener and get a preview of this movie. And it's a day one buy for me. I can't wait till they open the pre-orders so that I can send them my money so I can watch this in UHD. Holy shit, guys. 4K UHD New York Ninja.
It's
I'm so
real
excited.
nice.
I think the moral of the story here is don't skip the documentary.
Oh, no, definitely watch the documentary. I would recommend a New York Ninja documentary sandwich. Watch the movie, watch the doc, and then watch the movie again because it's that good.
What was up with the Snake Plissken guy? George doesn't know who that is, but the guy with the whip and the patch on his eye.
There were so many questions
Just like
with regards to bad guys. I mean, there was a lot of bad guys with some really interesting
questionable outfits. It's
you
almost
know, and
like
it
the
ranged-
casting call was
Questionable.
go to your closet, find 9 things that don't go together, and put them on.
Put 'em on.
Do you have a Halloween mask?
Yeah.
From the company that isn't Silver Shamrock. Okay, grab that mask.
There was
All
one
right.
skull mask though. Did you see that?
I did.
The one guy had the Silver Shamrock skull mask.
There's
It was
so many.
I didn't
So
notice.
many masks in this movie.
it wasn't a Don Post though. It was like a knockoff Don Post.
If you enjoy life and also like silly movies, this is a 10.
yeah.
Like this is get your buddies over, prepare some adult beverages, eat a lot of tacos, and watch a movie. This is the perfect opportunity for that. This is a heck of a movie, guys. I can't wait to watch it again. Like I watched it this morning. I watched it tonight while we were getting ready for the show. I can't wait to watch it again in a higher definition.
As soon as I heard the first dub, I'm like, oh, Dan's all over this movie. It's right up his alley. I knew you were it was going to be a love affair.
I'm really not a huge kung fu movie guy. Like Story of Ricky, hell yes, right?
It has all the
But-
other elements that you love, though. It's like it's
so
endearing
fun and campy,
and it's campy and it's over the top. It's
and I
dubbed.
love a punk rock movie. Give me Satan's Blade any day over most mainstream, even 80s slashers. You know, they're trying really hard, and they're getting results. And maybe it's not Friday the 13th Part 4, right, which is the superior slasher, but Satan's Blade has something special. You know, The Mutilator. Guys, Fall Break, I bring that up all the time. That movie rocks my face off, and it doesn't make any sense at times.
Well, I like
but it's like
I like
so
a movie like
endearing.
Funhouse. Funhouse is like
Oh my gosh.
it's a
Oh
great
my
movie,
gosh.
but it's like so not mainstream.
Hey,
you know,
when was the last
Pumpkinhead.
time Michael Myers got a hand job? You know what I mean? Like
Is that what was
Funhouse-
happening? I thought she was sitting on him.
No, that guy gets a handy and then he kills everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Funhouse is weird, man.
Yeah, Funhouse is a weird movie.
But I love it because it's crazy.
It's
Yeah.
definitely Dan's kind of movie.
And I think the makeup in that movie was actually Rick Baker?
Yes, it was, and directed by our friend Toby Hooper. But back to New York Ninja, guys. Comes out November 1st. Blu-ray, HDR, UHD, 4K Blu-ray as well. Packed with special features, fantastic packaging, and a documentary that really could sell you the disc with the movie as an accessory to the documentary. I thought that was worth most price of admission anyway. If nothing else, because I learned about a movie called Kung Fu Emmanuel. Guys, I cannot wait to track down a DVD of that on eBay. All right, George. Final verdict. Now that you know the backstory of that crazy movie you had to watch, does it make a little more sense as to why you had more questions than you thought you would?
Yeah.
And don't you kind of want to watch it one more time now that you know?
I might watch it again with context now.
first and foremost, I need to watch the documentary, which I haven't
Yes.
seen. It's not the kind of movie that I normally, that I normally love. I love epic movies. I love tragedies. I love it's got to be like really, really well done. That's what I love, right?
Yeah.
Would I watch it again? BSing with you and Travis? Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
That's the perfect opportunity with your
absolutely.
buddies. Have a couple of cold ones. Laugh at the silly parts. Remind yourself that you can't do any of the awesome martial arts that this guy can do, and just kind of sit back and relax as he's kicking dudes in the head. All kinds of creative ways.
Yep.
Dude's a heck of a martial artist. Like, I don't know what kind of movie maker he is on the whole, because we never saw his version of this movie. But John Liu can kick a man in a lot of creative ways, and I was entertained.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Remedial Film Class podcast, and thanks for sticking around for our final thoughts on this fantastic movie, New York Ninja. Head over to vinegarsyndrome.com on November 1st to pick up your copy in 4K UHD, HDR, or, just, it comes with a Blu-ray too. It'll cover everybody. If you haven't shopped with them before, they have excellent customer service. And guys, this movie's insane, but it is so much fun. If you enjoyed what you heard tonight, feel free to come back on Wednesday. We'll be posting our next episode. We post every Wednesday on YouTube and every podcatcher you can think of. We're wrapping up the fall break here with an extra week in November. And then we'll be moving on to a special treat for George. He's about to go through some things, and he doesn't know it yet. And I don't know if he's going to listen deep enough into this episode to know that I added this postscript. So stick around and come see George go through some things in November. Should be a lot of fun. Once again, we have to thank Vinegar Syndrome for creating this insane masterpiece, and to the entire crew, from Kurtis to Brad, and over to Ted at PR. Guys, thank you for this opportunity, but also thanks for making this movie. As I said, we're on YouTube and a lot of podcatchers. You can just look us up, Remedial Film Class Podcast. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Remedial Film Pod. You can find us at facebook.com/remedialfilmpod. And if you want to interact with the guys, give George a hard time, make fun of Travis, tell Dan how great he is. I mean, okay, you can make fun of me too. It's fine. I can take it. Head over to facebook.com/groups/remedialfilmpod and join in the conversation. Just don't spoil any movies for George that he hasn't seen, because that would ruin the science. All right. We'll see you back here Wednesday.
It's the Remedial Film Class Podcast. Travis and George and Dan. They're the Remedial Film Class Podcast. Take your seat. It's time to begin.